Dear Chosen One, if you've ever been called too intense, too quiet, too different, or simply too much to handle, this message isn't just for you, it is you. You might be one of God's chosen ones, a soul set apart not for comfort, but for transformation, a vessel crafted for divine purpose. And with that sacred calling comes a path that rarely feels easy. It's marked by misunderstood relationships, spiritual isolation, and the deep ache of being deeply seen by very few. But let me tell you this, chosen one, you're not unlovable. You're simply not accessible to everyone. And that's intentional. Your soul was built with layers, sacred layers, layers of purpose, of resilience, of fire refined in silence. Layers that only the spiritually awake will ever truly comprehend. Most people don't have the depth to reach you. And that's not arrogance, it's spiritual truth. Heaven designed you with dimensions the average eye can't perceive. This world often fails to embrace those who are set apart. Friends may fall away without reason. Romantic connections might unravel before they ever deepen. Even family members may misread you, mislabeling your sacred stillness as coldness, your inner truth as rebellion, your insight as pride. But what if I told you this was never about rejection? What if I told you it's divine refinement? Because chosen ones are called to be purified before they are positioned, hidden before they are revealed, alone before they are elevated. Today, we're going to dive into the truth behind why chosen ones, those who carry God's light in their bones, are often the most difficult people to love or befriend. But don't confuse difficult with undeserving. This difficulty is not your flaw, it's your filter. It's the divine mechanism heaven uses to ensure only aligned souls reach the sanctuary of your heart. And before we begin, I want to say thank you to every single one of you who has supported this sacred space through Super Thanks. Your generosity doesn't go unnoticed. Whether you've donated or simply stayed with us through these messages, I am deeply grateful for your energy, your time, and your spirit. It's your support that allows this truth to continue reaching others like you. And whether you give or not, your presence here is an offering of its own. If this message already resonates, if you've spent your life wondering why love seems to slip through your fingers, why people misinterpret your intentions, or why you feel like an outlier in every room you walk into, pause right now and type 777 in the comments. That number is not just a symbol, it's your spiritual signature. It means the message has arrived in divine timing. It means clarity is knocking on your soul's door. Now let's begin. Let's go beyond the noise, past the masks, and into the sacred reality of what it truly means to be one of God's chosen ones. God's chosen ones. 8 reasons why you are the most difficult people to love or befriend. 1. You feel everything on a deeper level. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the energy shift, even before anyone said a word? Have you ever cried for someone else's pain, someone you barely even know? Have you ever asked yourself, why do I feel everything so deeply when everyone else seems so numb? If you've ever wondered why your emotions run like rivers when others feel like stone, the answer is simple. Because you are chosen. Chosen ones are not just emotional beings. They are spiritually attuned vessels, wired to pick up on frequencies that others don't even notice. While the average person might navigate life with emotional blinders on, you are born with a divine radar. You can sense the subtle shifts in a person's spirit, hear the silent screams behind their smiles, and feel the thunder in what others call silence. This is not a coincidence. This is not an accident. It is by divine design. The Bible reminds us in Romans 12:15, Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. But you don't have to be told to do this. You are this. Your spirit naturally mirrors the collective energy of the world around you. You carry a level of empathy that frightens people, not because it's bad, but because it's powerful. You're like a spiritual mirror that reflects everything others try to hide. And in a world that glorifies masks, your authenticity becomes intimidating. Your soul was not built for surface-level living. You were born with the capacity to sit with grief, to honor pain, to notice the cracks in someone's voice and call them sacred. You don't do small talk. You crave truth. You're not interested in what someone does for a living. You want to know what they live for. You want to know what keeps them up at night. You want to explore the unspoken dreams, the wounds they pretend don't hurt anymore, and the little moments of beauty that give them hope. But here's the truth. Most people are not ready to go there with you. They live on emotional autopilot, and your presence threatens to wake them up. What happens when the depth of your heart is constantly misunderstood? When people confuse your silence for moodiness, your empathy for drama, or your insight for intensity? Have you noticed how many times you've had to dim your light just to make others comfortable? Or how often people call you too sensitive as if it were a flaw? But what if I told you that your sensitivity is not a weakness? It's the weapon God gave you to discern spirits. Look at the life of the prophet Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 9:1 he cries out, "Oh, that my head were a spring of water and my eyes a fountain of tears. I would weep day and night for the slain of my people." Jeremiah wasn't just emotional, he was chosen. His deep feelings weren't personal dysfunction, they were divine burden. And like you, Jeremiah was often isolated, mocked and misunderstood, not because he was broken, but because he was awake. Many great leaders throughout history have been this way. Take Princess Diana, for example. She was called the People's Princess, not because she followed protocol, but because she felt. She walked into hospitals and held the hands of AIDS patients when others were too afraid. She cried openly. She connected deeply. And because of that, she was both deeply loved and tragically misunderstood. Her sensitivity was her strength, and also the source of her sorrow. Another example is Chadwick Boseman, the actor who played Black Panther. What the world didn't know was that while he was filming roles that inspired millions, he was silently battling cancer. But even in pain, he poured himself into every scene. Why? Because he carried a purpose greater than performance. His spirit was open, aware, and deeply empathetic. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't just acting, he was transmitting soul-level truth. That's what chosen ones do. And let's not forget Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. She walked into bloody, disease-ridden battlefields, not with apathy, but with purpose. Why? Because she couldn't turn off the inner voice that told her every life mattered. People thought she was overreacting, too involved, too intense, but her sensitivity birthed systems that still save lives today. So why is it so hard to love someone like you? It's because people don't know what to do with someone who feels this much, this deeply, this fully. You are a walking contradiction, tender yet fierce, quiet yet intense, humble yet radiant. You force people to confront the parts of themselves they'd rather ignore, and most people don't want to be seen that clearly. That's why they back away. That's why they say you're too much. But the truth is, you're just too real for a world that is still pretending. Even Jesus, the ultimate chosen one, was described as a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Isaiah 53:3. He wept at Lazarus' tomb, even though he knew he would raise him. He felt the crowd's pain. He healed people, not just physically, but emotionally. He noticed the bleeding woman in the crowd. He stopped for the blind man. He heard the silent cry of a sinner in a tree. Jesus didn't walk through life untouched. He walked through life broken, open, constantly absorbing and transforming the pain around him. And yet, even Jesus was rejected. So, chosen one, what makes you think you won't be? Your gift is rare, and what is rare is often feared before it is valued. But let me ask you this: what if you stopped viewing your depth as a liability and started seeing it as proof of your divine assignment? What if every time someone called you too much, it was really God reminding you that you were made for more? In 1 Corinthians 2:10-11, Paul writes, "These are the things God has revealed to us by His Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God." You were born to search the deep things, to feel, to sense, to understand without needing a word spoken. Your discernment is holy, your sensitivity is sacred. But here's what you must remember: not everyone can go where you're going. Some people will exit your life, not because you did anything wrong, but because their spirit simply couldn't stand the weight of your light. That's okay. You're not here to be popular. You're here to be prophetic. And prophets are often lonely, not because they're broken, but because they're set apart. You might wonder, will I ever find someone who sees me the way I see others? The answer is yes, but only when you stop shrinking. Only when you own your power without apology. Only when you stop apologizing for caring too much, loving too much, and feeling too deeply. God will align you with those who match your depth. He will bring people who speak the language of the soul, who know how to swim in deep waters and won't panic when they feel the currents. But until then, do not silence yourself to soothe someone else's discomfort. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." That's you. That's your superpower. You feel because you are close to God. You feel because you are an extension of heaven's heart on earth. And even when the world doesn't understand you, heaven does. So here's what I leave you with. Chosen one, stop explaining your depth to those who only know how to wade in the shallows. You were made for oceans. You were made to weep with angels and sing with the broken. You were made to feel so deeply because you are meant to heal what others ignore. You are not too much. You are just in a world that feels too little. And if no one has told you lately, let me say this: your depth is divine. Your empathy is powerful. Your emotions are holy ground. So keep feeling, keep loving, keep walking barefoot through the fire. Because you, chosen one, were made to carry what most people can't even bear to look at. 2. Your standards are spiritually elevated. Why do people accuse you of being too much when all you're doing is honoring your worth? Why do they call you hard to please when you're simply refusing to betray your spirit? Why is it that holding out for something real feels like rebellion in a world that settles for illusions? The truth, chosen one, is this: your standards aren't high, they're holy. You do not settle, not because you think you're superior, but because your soul remembers what it cost you when you did. You've endured betrayal that shattered your trust. You've sat through conversations that sounded friendly but felt like daggers. You've tasted the bitter fruit of relationships that looked good on the outside but rotted you from within. And because of this, you've chosen to live with discernment instead of desperation. As someone set apart by God, your standards are not just personal. They are spiritually mandated boundaries designed to protect your purpose. You don't entertain surface-level love because you are not a surface-level soul. Your calling demands depth, your energy demands alignment, and your heart demands a sanctuary, not a battlefield. In Proverbs 4:23, Scripture says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." You, chosen one, have taken this seriously, not in fear, but in faith. You don't guard your heart because you're afraid of love. You guard it because you understand the power of what flows from within you. Your love is not ordinary. It heals, it sees, it transforms. And that kind of love cannot be given casually to people who only want convenience. But how often have others misunderstood this? You've likely been told your expectations are unrealistic, that you're too intense, that you should just give them a chance. But you know what they can't see. You know what it feels like to give your spirit to someone who doesn't have the capacity to hold it. You know what it's like to ignore your intuition for the sake of belonging, only to lose pieces of yourself in the process. That's why you no longer tolerate confusion disguised as chemistry or attention disguised as affection. You now choose clarity. You choose peace. You choose alignment over attachment. Think about Ruth from the Bible. She could have gone back to what was familiar after her husband died, but she didn't. Instead, she said to Naomi in Ruth 1:16, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Ruth followed her soul, not social norms, and because of that, God aligned her with Boaz, a divine connection that birthed a lineage leading to King David and ultimately to Jesus. Ruth wasn't picky. She was purposeful, just like you. And this sense of spiritual purpose is what many people around you can't understand. They think you're difficult when you're actually discerning. They think you're cold when you're simply cautious. But can you blame yourself? After all you've been through, after all the emotional betrayals, spiritual dissonance, and soul-draining conversations, is it really a crime to want something deeper? Your standards aren't a wall, they're a filter. They don't keep love out, they keep dysfunction out. You don't ask for perfection, you ask for presence. You want connection that doesn't require you to shrink. You want love that doesn't come with a price tag of self-abandonment. And if that makes you hard to love, so be it. You'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded by people who only know how to love the mask you used to wear. Look at Michelle Obama. Before she became First Lady, she was already a powerful force, intelligent, emotionally aware, and spiritually grounded. She didn't lower her standards. She waited for alignment. And because of that, she built a partnership rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and spiritual evolution. It's not about perfection, it's about vision. It's about growth. It's about choosing someone who walks beside you without slowing you down or dimming your light. Another example, Bob Marley, the legendary musician. He once said, "The biggest coward is a man who awakens a woman's love with no intention of loving her." Marley understood the sacredness of love and the damage caused by those who misuse it. He lived with integrity, often misunderstood by society, but always loyal to his spiritual truth. He didn't settle for hollow fame. He spoke for something higher. And we cannot forget Saint Teresa of Calcutta, known as Mother Teresa. Her entire life was a testimony to uncompromised spiritual standards. She refused recognition from the world if it meant forsaking the poor, the sick, and the abandoned. People called her extreme, radical, but her alignment with God's call was unwavering. And today, her legacy is a blueprint for spiritual devotion over worldly approval. So why do you still question yourself? Why do you sometimes wonder if your standards are too much? Why do you second-guess your worth when others leave because they cannot meet you where you are? Could it be that God is actually protecting you, shielding you from entanglements that would delay your destiny? In Psalm 1:1-2, it says, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked or stand in the way that sinners take, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord." That's you. You don't walk in step with the world, you walk in rhythm with the Spirit. And because of that, your path may look narrow, but it is powerful. Being alone doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're learning, you're refining, you're becoming the version of yourself that won't crumble when the real connection finally arrives. And when it does, it won't demand that you dilute your light just to be loved. It will celebrate your brilliance. It will honor your depth. It will align, not distract. But until then, chosen one, keep your standards. Do not apologize for them. Do not justify them to people who only want a version of you that's easier to digest. You are not for everyone, and that is the point. You were never called to be common. You were called to be consecrated. As 2 Corinthians 6:17 declares, "Come out from them and be separate, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you." Your standards are not separation. They are sanctification. You're not rejecting others. You're responding to God's invitation to higher ground. And yes, the path gets lonely sometimes. You may sit in silence while others dance with distractions. You may feel like you're waiting forever while others jump into connection after connection. But your wait is not in vain. Your silence is not empty. It is sacred preparation. So, is it really your standards that are the problem, or is it the world's addiction to settling? You are not too much. You are not asking for too much. You're simply not willing to waste your divine energy on connections that can't handle your frequency. So keep choosing depth over distraction. Keep choosing peace over pressure. Keep choosing God's timing over people's expectations. Because when you finally align with what's been divinely reserved for you, it will not only meet your standards, it will exceed them. 3. You have a built-in lie detector. Have you ever sensed something was wrong even when everything seemed perfect on the surface? Have you ever smiled politely during a conversation while your spirit whispered, "This person is not who they pretend to be"? Have you ever walked away from someone, not because they said the wrong thing, but because their energy spoke louder than their words? If you've ever questioned how you just knew, chosen one, the answer is simple. You have a built-in lie detector, and it's not just instinct, it's divine discernment. You don't rely solely on logic. You don't need a confession. You don't require physical proof. You sense energy. You read between silences. You see past appearances. And this ability, this holy gift, was planted in you by God Himself to protect your purpose in a world overflowing with illusion. In 1 Corinthians 2:14, the Bible declares, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolish, because they are discerned only through the Spirit." What others mock as paranoia or overthinking, heaven recognizes as spiritual discernment. Your ability to detect falsehood is not mental, it's spiritual. It's your soul tuning into God's frequency while the world tries to distract you with noise. You've been in rooms where everyone else was fooled, but something deep inside you sounded the alarm. That's not anxiety, that's protection. You've felt it in a handshake too tight, a compliment that felt rehearsed, a conversation that lacked congruence. You've smiled at people while your spirit held its breath. You've walked away from opportunities that looked perfect on paper, but your soul whispered no, and you listened. Chosen one, how many disasters have you quietly avoided because you trusted your intuition when no one else did? That's why your presence unnerves people who live inauthentically. They may not know why, but they can feel it. Your spirit exposes what they work so hard to conceal. You don't have to accuse them. You don't have to say a word. You are the revelation. You carry a frequency of truth that flushes out deceit, even if it hides behind a friendly smile. This is why people either respect you deeply or retreat from you entirely. Look at the story of Peter and Ananias in Acts 5:1-10. Ananias and his wife Sapphira tried to deceive the apostles by lying about money they withheld, but Peter, full of the Spirit, instantly discerned the lie. He said, "Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit. Acts 5:3. Peter didn't need surveillance footage. He didn't need evidence. He was aligned with the Spirit of truth. And so are you. People sense this when they're around you. Your energy is like a divine mirror. It doesn't judge, it reflects. And that reflection can be uncomfortable. It brings to the surface what people try to bury. Their unspoken jealousy, their hidden resentment, their secret intentions. When they look at you, they feel seen in ways they didn't agree to. And while some will be humbled by that and rise higher, others will run. They'll say you're intimidating, or distant, or too much. But what they really mean is, I can't lie around you and that scares me. Even Maya Moore, the WNBA champion who left professional basketball at her prime to help free a wrongly incarcerated man, demonstrated the courage of spiritual discernment. When others told her to focus on her career, she chose justice instead. She sensed truth beyond evidence. She saw what others missed. Her internal compass didn't just change one life. It changed the narrative of faith in action. Or consider Keanu Reeves. Known for his humble spirit and quiet presence, he's often described by those who work with him as someone who sees through people. He isn't loud, but he's perceptive. He treats everyone the same, janitor or executive. Why? Because he sees essence, not performance. This calm but profound sensitivity unnerves those who rely on charm and image. And that's you, chosen one. You're not impressed by masks. You see the soul. And look at Harriet Tubman, the woman who led hundreds of enslaved people to freedom. She trusted her divine instinct so deeply that she often changed paths in the middle of the night, sensing danger even when it wasn't visible. Her intuition saved lives. Her discernment dismantled entire systems. And her clarity in chaos was not just survival, it was sacred calling. You may not be leading people through the Underground Railroad, but you are guiding souls away from manipulation, toxicity, and illusion. Your discernment is liberation. But here's the hard truth. Having a built-in lie detector means you will often walk alone. Why? Because most people don't want to be seen that clearly. They prefer flattery over truth. They are drawn to charisma over character. But you, chosen one, you listen for vibration, not volume. You measure consistency, not compliments. You're not seduced by words, you're moved by alignment. And that makes you rare. In Hebrews 5:14 it says, "But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil." You've trained your spirit, often through heartbreak, betrayal, and silence, to discern good from evil in ways most people never will. That's why you can no longer be deceived. And those who try often walk away confused, wondering why their usual tactics didn't work. You've likely experienced it in relationships too. Someone came into your life with charm, with all the right words, but something felt off. You wanted to believe the best, but your spirit said otherwise. And even though it broke your heart to walk away, you did. Because you've learned that ignoring your intuition leads to consequences far worse than temporary loneliness. Let me ask you this. How many times have you regretted listening to your intuition? Now compare that to how many times you've regretted ignoring it. Your intuition is God's whisper. And when He speaks, it's often not with thunder, but with a nudge, a stillness, a knowing. Don't suppress that voice. Don't second-guess it because it makes others uncomfortable. Don't dilute your truth just because the room is filled with people who would rather you stay silent. In John 16:13, Jesus said, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all truth." That guide lives within you. You carry the Spirit of truth, and where truth dwells, lies cannot survive for long. So yes, your presence exposes what's false. Yes, people may feel uneasy around you without knowing why. Yes, you may find yourself doubting this gift because it sometimes feels like a curse. But let me affirm you now, it is a shield, not a burden. It is a compass, not confusion. It is a light, not a flaw. Chosen one, the world is full of illusion. But you are clarity. And while many may not appreciate your insight now, there will come a time when they realize you weren't suspicious. You were sacred. So stand in your discernment with confidence. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to explain it. Let your peace speak. Let your boundaries preach. Let your absence from chaos be the sermon. Because when you walk in truth, even the loudest lie becomes silent. 4. You're unapologetically authentic. Have you ever felt like you were born with a truth inside you that refuses to be silenced, no matter how uncomfortable it makes others? Have you ever wondered why people pull away the moment you choose honesty over politeness, or why they label you as intense simply for being real? Chosen one, it's because you were never meant to blend in. You were born to break the illusion. You don't wear social masks to gain approval. You don't shrink to make others feel tall. You don't water down your truth for the sake of false harmony. You were designed to disrupt the performance of a world addicted to pretending. In a culture that celebrates curated images, filtered personalities, and practiced small talk, you are the rare presence that refuses to play along. You don't fake smiles to keep the peace. You don't nod along to conversations void of meaning. You don't pretend to care about what doesn't stir your spirit. Your honesty is not just a preference, it's your spiritual identity. And yet, let's be honest, being authentic comes at a cost. People don't always know what to do with someone who is unedited, unfiltered, and unmoved by social games. Your presence makes people look inward, and many aren't ready to see what lies beneath their masks. That's why they say you're too much. That's why they laugh nervously when you speak your truth. That's why they distance themselves without explanation. Because in a world of echoes, your original voice confronts their imitation. But the truth is, you were never called to be convenient. You were called to be consecrated. In Romans 12:2, the Apostle Paul writes, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You, chosen one, are the living example of this verse. You refuse to conform, and instead, you transform the atmosphere by simply being yourself. You don't need a platform to be powerful. You don't need a crowd to validate your conviction. Your truth doesn't ask for applause. It walks in authority. This is why, even in silence, your authenticity speaks volumes. Jesus himself didn't fit into religious systems. He didn't act the part the Pharisees expected. He healed on the Sabbath, ate with tax collectors, and sat with the broken. He called out hypocrisy, flipped temple tables, and told uncomfortable truths. And for that, they hated him. Not because he lied, but because he lived authentically in a world addicted to pretense. In Luke 4:28-30, after Jesus spoke the truth in his own hometown, the people were so offended they tried to throw him off a cliff. What does that tell you? That sometimes telling the truth, being the truth, will make people feel like you're a threat. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're different. Your presence awakens what they've worked hard to keep asleep. That's why your very existence becomes a spiritual confrontation. Think about Lady Gaga. Before the fame and the accolades, she was ridiculed for being weird, different, too much. But her refusal to conform to society's standards became her legacy. She wore her eccentricity with pride and gave others permission to be themselves. Today, she's not just seen as a pop icon, she's celebrated as a symbol of self-expression and inner truth. Or consider Robin Williams. Beneath the jokes and the charisma was a soul so sensitive, so raw, that his humor became a bridge to the hearts of millions. He didn't hide behind the mask of celebrity, he used it to bring light. And yet that depth made him carry burdens the world could never fully understand. Like you, he felt deeply. Like you, his authenticity was both his gift and his struggle. Another powerful example is Malala Yousafzai. When she stood up for her right to education, she wasn't just voicing her opinion. She was revealing a truth that others wanted buried. Her authenticity cost her everything, including a bullet to the head. But even after that, she didn't retreat. She rose louder, stronger. Her truth became a global movement. Now let me ask you this. How many masks have you refused to wear that others begged you to put on? How many rooms have you walked out of because staying would have meant betraying your soul? You don't say yes when you mean no. You don't laugh when something breaks your spirit. You don't pretend to be okay just to keep the peace. And while that may make others uncomfortable, it makes you unstoppable. In Psalm 139, verse 14, David says, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." That means your uniqueness is not a flaw, it's a fingerprint of the divine. Your honesty is not aggression, it's alignment. Your authenticity is not rebellion, it's remembrance. You're remembering who God made you to be before the world told you to hide. But let's also acknowledge the loneliness this path sometimes brings. You may feel isolated, misunderstood, like the only one in the room who refuses to pretend, and you're not imagining that. The cost of authenticity is real, but so is its reward, because while others are busy maintaining their performance, you're building your foundation on truth, and only what's built on truth will last. In John 8:32, Jesus said, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." You walk in freedom not because your life is easy, but because your soul is unchained. You are not performing, you are being. And that's the kind of freedom no popularity can buy and no system can cancel. So don't apologize for who you are. Don't shrink so others can shine. Don't edit your voice to make people comfortable with their lie. Because every time you choose truth over approval, heaven celebrates. Every time you show up raw instead of rehearsed, you honor the God who made you in his image. Let me leave you with one more question. Chosen one, what if the very things that make others uneasy about you are the exact things God placed in you to change the world? Your authenticity is not an accident, it's an assignment. In a generation longing for something real, you are the answer. In a world obsessed with illusion, you are the clarity. In a culture trading identity for likes, you are the legacy that will outlast the noise. And remember this, your realness is a light in a world that has forgotten what truth feels like. So speak, even when your voice shakes. Stand, even when you stand alone, and walk into every room knowing you carry the holy fire of divine authenticity. You are not too much. You are not too honest. You are not too raw. You are exactly what this world needs. 5. Your presence triggers inner insecurities in others. Have you ever walked into a room and felt eyes turn, not because you were loud, boastful, or demanding attention, but because your energy simply could not be ignored? Have you ever noticed how people sometimes grow distant from you, not after conflict or misunderstanding, but after sharing just a little too much of their truth in your presence? Chosen one, you may not realize it fully yet, but your very presence is a mirror, and most people are not ready to see what reflects back. You carry something that can't be explained in words. Your presence speaks even when your mouth is closed. Your silence, your stillness, your very being is a frequency that vibrates truth. You don't need to expose anyone. Just being near you brings their inner unrest to the surface. And for those who have buried their pain, ignored their healing, or refused to face their brokenness, that's not just uncomfortable, it's terrifying. There's something sacred in the way you carry your scars. You don't hide your pain, you wear it with grace. You've turned your wounds into wisdom, and that's rare. Most people try to bury their pain beneath performance, behind personas, and beneath surface-level living. But you, chosen one, you faced the darkness, and you now carry the light of someone who has come out on the other side. And that light, though beautiful, becomes blinding to those who are still hiding in shadow. The Bible captures this dynamic powerfully in John 3:20, which says, "Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed." You are not just a kind person, you are light. And where there is light, darkness becomes visible. It is not because you are condemning others. It is not because you are pointing fingers. It is simply because your existence reveals what others are trying not to face. Think about how often people open up to you without intending to. They start to talk, and suddenly their pain spills out, their hidden doubts surface, and their stories take an emotional turn. Then, sometimes they pull away, ghost you, turn cold, or begin to criticize. Why? Because they feel vulnerable, they feel seen. And in a world where everyone is performing, being truly seen can feel like exposure. You are a spiritual mirror, chosen one, not because you judge others, but because you walk in a truth that reflects whatever is unhealed in them. And not everyone is ready to do the work. Instead of turning inward to grow, many turn outward to project. They might blame you, they might gossip about you, they might call you too intense, too deep, or too spiritual, but deep down they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the parts of themselves that you unintentionally exposed. This isn't personal, it's spiritual. In 2 Corinthians 2:15-16, Paul writes, "For we are to God the pleasing aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and those who are perishing. To the one we are an aroma that brings death, to the other an aroma that brings life." What does this mean for you? It means that your very being has a spiritual impact. For those who are ready, your presence awakens. But for those resisting growth, your presence agitates. Not because you're wrong, but because their time hasn't come. And yet, this can be a lonely path. When you live with spiritual clarity, emotional depth, and energetic presence, people often mistake your light for something they need to run from. They don't realize that you're not judging them. You're actually inviting them to heal. You're not condemning them. You're holding space for transformation. Nelson Mandela, for instance, once said, "As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." Yet even he, a symbol of peace and justice, was imprisoned for decades. His light threatened systems of darkness. His presence provoked fear in the insecure, but in the end, his very existence became an invitation for global healing. Likewise, consider Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter whose raw expression of pain, identity, and vulnerability made many uncomfortable. Her art was not merely visual, it was spiritual truth painted in color. She revealed wounds most tried to hide, and though often misunderstood in her time, she became a timeless mirror for human emotion. And let's not overlook Anthony Bourdain, whose soulful approach to storytelling touched millions. He traveled the world not to eat, but to connect, deeply, truthfully. His authenticity made people drop their walls. And yet carrying that much awareness and sensitivity in a disconnected world proved heavy. His life reminds us that depth, when unshared or misunderstood, can become both a gift and a burden. So what happens when your presence becomes a test for others? They either evolve or they escape. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to explain yourself. Your presence alone presents the choice. It offers people the opportunity to rise or the excuse to retreat. Some will embrace the challenge. They will rise higher, face their shadows, and grow. Others will reject you, not because they dislike you, but because they're not ready to face themselves. In Isaiah 61, Scripture calls, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That's not just a poetic verse, it's your current assignment. You are a lighthouse, chosen one. And just as ships are drawn to or avoid lighthouses depending on the conditions of their journey, so too are people drawn to or repelled by your light based on the condition of their soul. This is why you must never dim your radiance to make others feel safe in their shadows. Your job is not to shrink. It is not to apologize for how powerfully God made you. Your job is to stand, to shine, and to be the invitation. Let me ask you something. How many people have walked away from you and blamed you for the discomfort they were unwilling to own? And how many of those same people later returned, silently thanking you for being the one who shook them awake? Sometimes the ones who are triggered by you will later be transformed by you. But even if they never say it, your light planted a seed, and that seed may grow long after you've walked away. You are not the wound, they are. You are not the source of their fear. You are the mirror reflecting where fear lives in them. In Matthew 5:14-16, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." You're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're here to make truth visible, and truth, though freeing, can be disruptive. So yes, your presence will sometimes make people uneasy. Yes, your silence will say more than their loudest performance. Yes, your eyes will read what their mouths never speak. And yes, some will leave because of that. But never forget, your presence was never the problem. It was the invitation. Keep showing up. Keep glowing. Keep walking in the divine authority of someone who has done the inner work. You are not here to perform. You are here to provoke healing. You are not here to entertain illusions. You are here to embody truth. And even when they don't thank you, even when they misunderstand you, even when they whisper behind your back, know this: heaven watches, heaven records, and heaven smiles, because every time you trigger someone into awareness, even if they don't admit it, you've served your purpose. 6. You've been hurt, too deeply, too often. Chosen one, how many times have you handed your heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it? How many moments have you stood there, raw and vulnerable, only to be met with silence, betrayal, or rejection? And perhaps the hardest part isn't that they broke your heart, it's that they didn't even realize they were holding something sacred. You've lived through emotional earthquakes that would have shattered others. You've trusted those who turned away, loved people who were never taught how to love in return, and offered the deepest parts of your soul to individuals who only knew how to relate through masks. And yet, against all odds, you're still here. Your heart still beats with compassion. Your spirit still hopes for healing. That alone, chosen one, is a miracle wrapped in flesh. But let's not ignore the truth. You've changed. You are no longer wide open. That soft, innocent version of you has evolved. The light is still there, but now it flickers behind the protection of wisdom. You've learned to listen more than you speak. You've learned to watch people's energy, not just their words. You've learned that intentions matter more than declarations. And more importantly, you've learned to protect your peace like it's sacred ground, because it is. You didn't become guarded overnight. You became guarded the moment you realized that too many people walk around with sharp edges and careless hands. You were open, warm, generous, and you bled for it. You bled in silence, behind closed doors. You bled in relationships where love was conditional. You bled in friendships that quietly envied you. You bled for people who didn't even know the cost of your presence. And now you've learned. You don't chase. You don't beg. You observe. And still, people misunderstand. Some call you distant. Some say you're emotionally unavailable. Others complain you've changed. But the truth is, they just never saw the wounds that shaped you. They don't see the nights you stayed up asking God if you were the problem. They don't know how long it took you to trust again. They don't understand that your silence is not coldness, it's self-respect. Your caution is not fear, it's reverence. You are not closed off, you're sacred. And not everyone deserves the keys to your sanctuary. In Proverbs 4:23, we're reminded, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And you, chosen one, have taken this seriously, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. You've learned to pour wisely, to give where there is reciprocation, to love without losing yourself. And while others may accuse you of being too careful, you know that your carefulness is not hesitation, it is discernment. Think of Joseph, the dreamer in Genesis, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. And yet, he never lost his ability to see God's hand. By the time he rose to power in Egypt, he no longer gave his trust away easily. But he still forgave. He still led with compassion. And when his brothers came back to him, Joseph didn't attack. He wept. He tested them, yes. But he loved them, because that's what the chosen do. They may protect themselves more fiercely, but their hearts are still full of mercy. And you are the same. Your love hasn't died. It's just become refined. You don't give it recklessly anymore. You don't romanticize potential. You've been through enough to know that presence is more important than promises. That energy never lies. That consistency matters. And while the world may not understand that shift, heaven does. Look at Adele, the globally celebrated singer. Much of her music is birthed from heartbreak, vulnerability, and the long road back to emotional safety. She has spoken openly about how hard it is to trust again after being emotionally broken. And yet, she continues to write, to sing, to open up, not to everyone, but to those who will listen without judgment. Her scars became her sound. Like you, she doesn't expose herself to be seen. She expresses herself to be understood. Or consider Kehlani, an artist who speaks honestly about love, betrayal, mental health, and recovery. Her rise to success wasn't without setbacks or deep pain. She's been hurt publicly, misjudged loudly, but she still protects her peace. She draws boundaries. She refuses to perform emotional labor for people who don't value it. Her authenticity, like yours, is her quiet revolution. Even Fred Rogers, known as Mr. Rogers, lived through personal grief and spiritual depth. Despite his gentle demeanor, he wasn't naive. He understood pain, and that's why his compassion carried such weight, because it wasn't coming from untouched idealism, but from a soul that had seen sorrow and still chose kindness. He once said, "There are those who see a need in the world and respond. I consider those people my heroes." Chosen one, that's what you are. A silent hero, one who chooses to keep loving, even when life has given you every reason not to. But let me ask you this. How many times have you suppressed your emotions just to avoid being seen as too much? How many times have you loved in silence because speaking your truth felt dangerous? And how many times have you watched someone walk away, not because you weren't loving, but because they weren't ready to meet you at the depth you live in? Chosen one, your story is not one of weakness. It is one of extraordinary resilience. Every time you chose forgiveness over resentment, every time you chose solitude over toxicity, every time you chose to keep your heart open in a world that feeds off walls, you were honoring your divine identity. In 2 Corinthians 4:8-9, Paul writes, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed." That's your soul signature, bruised but breathing, weary but worshipping, not broken, reborn. People think your caution is rejection, but they don't realize it's wisdom. You've had to learn how to scan the spirit behind someone's smile. You've had to learn to spot red flags disguised as romance. You've had to learn that not every apology is repentance, and not every connection is covenant. And yet your love is still alive. It hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting for a container worthy of holding it. You are not emotionally unavailable. You are emotionally sacred. Your love has become so powerful that it now demands safety, loyalty, alignment. In Isaiah 61:3, God promises a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. You've been through fire, but now you rise in glory. Not because the pain didn't change you, but because it refined you. It sculpted your standards. It shaped your spirit. It made you whole. So no, not everyone gets access to you, and they shouldn't. The version of you now isn't built for misuse. You are not hard to love. You are hard to fool. You are not bitter. You are better. You are not guarded. You are grounded. Let the world mislabel you. Let them call you cold when you're simply careful. Let them say you're distant when you're discerning. Because in due time, someone will recognize what others couldn't. Someone will approach your heart not to conquer it, but to honor it. And when that day comes, they'll realize that the love you give isn't ordinary, it's divine. 7. You operate on a different frequency. Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt like you were on a completely different wavelength? Have you ever tried to talk about something that stirs your soul, only to be met with blank stares or polite nods that quickly shift the conversation back to the weather, gossip, or what's trending online? If so, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you're operating on a higher frequency. Chosen one, your soul has evolved beyond the surface-level noise of this world. You've outgrown meaningless chatter, performative friendships, and distractions masquerading as fulfillment. You crave something more than entertainment, more than temporary pleasure, more than small talk. You crave depth, purpose, healing, truth, alignment. These aren't buzzwords for you. They're the core of your being. You don't just talk about destiny and divine timing because it sounds mystical. You talk about them because you live in that awareness. You walk through life tuned into something most people have forgotten, the whisper of the spirit. You feel pulled by forces that can't be explained in a spreadsheet. You know when something is aligned and when it isn't, without needing to justify it. You've walked through enough pain, enough shadows, enough transformation to know what matters and what doesn't. And because of that, you don't waste your energy on connections that don't feed your spirit. You simply can't. In 1 Corinthians 2:14, Paul wrote, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolish, because they are discerned only through the Spirit." What does this mean for you? It means you're speaking a spiritual language, and not everyone has the ears to hear it. It's not arrogance, it's not pride, it's alignment. It's the natural result of waking up, of healing, of going deeper within while the world stays on the surface. But let's be honest, it's lonely up here sometimes, isn't it? There are days you want to share your insights, your revelations, your heart, but the room isn't ready. The frequency mismatch can be painful. You feel like an alien in familiar places, like a lighthouse in a city obsessed with neon lights. People accuse you of being too deep, too intense, or too serious. But what they don't realize is, this isn't performance. It's presence. You're not trying to sound wise. You're speaking from where you live now. And that place is simply higher. Even Jesus experienced this. In John 8:23, he said, "You are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world." He wasn't condemning people. He was stating a spiritual reality. Jesus operated on a frequency most couldn't comprehend. And because of that, he was often misunderstood, even hated. But he never dimmed his light to make others feel comfortable in the dark. Neither should you. Let's look at Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor and visionary who once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He wasn't interested in what was trending. He was tuned into another dimension of thought. People misunderstood him. Many mocked him. But decades later, the world finally caught up to what he'd been trying to say all along. Or take Lauryn Hill, the singer and poet whose music doesn't just entertain, it awakens. When she stepped away from the limelight to protect her soul, people called her unstable, difficult, or self-sabotaging. But the truth was, she was vibrating on a higher level. She could no longer play the game. Her frequency demanded solitude, integrity, truth. And though misunderstood, her voice continues to echo because it carries frequency over fame. Then there's Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology. He wrote about the soul, archetypes, synchronicity, and the shadow long before it was fashionable to do so. He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Like you, Jung wasn't interested in fitting in. He was committed to understanding the unseen, and that commitment made him resonate with truth seekers across generations. So let me ask you this, chosen one, how many times have you pretended to care about surface conversations just to avoid the ache of disconnection? How many times have you dimmed your thoughts, softened your truth, or laughed at something meaningless just to feel like you belonged? And how many times did you walk away from those moments feeling spiritually empty? It's not that you're antisocial, it's that you're frequency sensitive. You feel drained by what others consider normal. You're allergic to anything inauthentic, and while that may isolate you at times, it also protects your purpose. You're not meant to relate to everyone. You're meant to resonate with the right ones. And that difference is everything. In Matthew 7:6, Jesus cautioned, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs." That sounds harsh on the surface, but spiritually it's a call to alignment. Your energy, your insight, your spiritual gifts, they are pearls. And not everyone has the awareness, humility, or hunger to handle them. That's not your fault. That's your filter. And still, the waiting can be painful. You long for connection, for real, sacred, soul-stirring conversation. And sometimes you wonder, will anyone ever meet me here? Will anyone ever understand this place I've worked so hard to grow into? The answer is yes, but not by force, by alignment. You are not meant to force yourself into rooms where your soul suffocates. You're meant to hold your frequency steady until the ones who match it arrive. And when they do, you'll know. You'll feel it in your body, in your spirit, in your bones, because it won't feel like small talk. It will feel like soul recognition. In Isaiah 40:31 it says, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." Eagles don't fly in flocks. They soar alone until they meet another who can rise to their height. That's you. You were not made to flap in circles with pigeons. You were made to rise with the few who fly with purpose. So let them say you're too much. Let them misunderstand your silence. Let them walk away when your frequency exposes their distractions. You were not sent here to perform. You were sent here to awaken. And awakening is always misunderstood by those still asleep. One day, someone will sit across from you and speak in the same language of truth and transformation. They'll talk about divine timing, not deadlines, about soul healing, not surface healing. And in that moment, your spirit will exhale, because you'll no longer be explaining, you'll be expanding. You'll no longer be translating, you'll be transmitting. So, chosen one, here is your call. Stop chasing resonance in places that only offer relevance. Stop sacrificing depth for connection. Stop pretending to be normal just to be accepted by people who haven't even met their own soul yet. You are not here to be relatable. You are here to be a resonant vibration in a world dulled by noise. So rise, speak your truth, hold your frequency, and trust this: the ones meant for you will not only hear you, they'll feel you. 8. You're called to walk alone before you're called to lead. Have you ever wondered why your journey has felt so lonely? Why, despite the love you've given, the loyalty you've shown, and the wisdom you carry, you still find yourself walking through seasons of isolation? Chosen one, it's not a punishment. It's not abandonment. It's not rejection. It's preparation. This is the truth that breaks most chosen ones. Loneliness is part of your training. You are being sculpted in silence, refined away from the spotlight, strengthened when no one is cheering for you. This isn't accidental, it's divine design. Before you are trusted to lead others, you must first become whole within yourself. You are not being delayed, you are being developed. The world trains leaders in front of crowds, but heaven trains them in caves. God isolates before he elevates, and you, chosen one, are no exception. You've been sent into a kind of spiritual wilderness, not to be lost, but to be found, not by others, but by God, and ultimately by yourself. In Exodus 3:1, Moses encountered God not in a palace, not at a feast, but in the wilderness, alone, tending sheep, far from the glory he once knew in Egypt. It was there, in solitude, that the burning bush appeared. It was there that purpose found him. God didn't call Moses in comfort, he called him in consecration. And so it is with you. If you feel alone, it's because your appointment with destiny is a one-on-one meeting. But let's not romanticize it. This journey hurts. The silence can feel suffocating. The nights can be heavy. The "why me?" questions echo with no immediate reply. Your walls have gotten higher. Your trust has become slower. Your circle has shrunk. You've stopped explaining yourself because too many people misunderstood your truth. But none of that means you're broken. It means you're becoming. People see your strength, but not the solitude it took to build it. They admire your wisdom, but know nothing of the silence that shaped it. They want your light, but were never present in your darkness. But you, chosen one, understand this. Before God makes you unmissable, he must first make you unshakable. Think about David, the shepherd boy turned king. Long before he held a crown, he was tending sheep alone. He killed lions and bears when no one was watching. He wrote psalms under the stars while the world ignored him. And even after he was anointed, he was sent back to the fields, because God knew the battlefield would one day be his platform, and that kind of leadership requires solitude. 1 Samuel 16:13 tells us, "Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward." But the anointing wasn't the beginning of applause, it was the beginning of hiding. Sound familiar? The pattern repeats in every chosen life. Rosa Parks, before she became the icon of civil rights, was just a quiet seamstress walking alone with her convictions. She wasn't trying to lead, she was simply unwilling to move. And that inner decision led to a global movement. She wasn't surrounded by fanfare, she was surrounded by opposition, but her loneliness became history's pivot point. Or think of Vincent van Gogh, a misunderstood artist, constantly ridiculed and rejected, who painted from a place of deep isolation. During his life, he sold only one painting, but now his work is considered transcendent. He wasn't creating for applause, he was creating from soul. Like you, his loneliness wasn't proof of failure, it was proof of a frequency few could hear. And look at Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, abandoned by systems, silenced by power. But it was in that prison, away from noise, opinion, and comfort, that he became the leader who would not just change a nation, but inspire the world. His leadership was not forged in public, but in the lonely silence of private conviction. So let me ask you, how many times have you mistaken your isolation for failure when in reality it was sacred preparation? How often have you felt like God forgot you when in truth he was hiding you? Not to punish you, but to preserve you. The world tells you that if you're not surrounded by people, you're irrelevant. But heaven knows that the greatest revelations often come in the quietest places. In Luke 5:16 it says of Jesus, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Even the Son of God chose solitude, not because he lacked love, but because he needed alignment. And if Jesus needed to step away from crowds to stay connected to the Father, so do you. But the real test is this: can you continue walking without applause? Can you keep showing up with excellence even when no one sees you? Can you keep loving even when you feel unloved? Can you protect your purity, your standards, your vision, even when no one is watching? Because that's where real leadership begins, not in public, but in private. And yes, there will be times people say you're too hard to love, but chosen one, do not let that lie enter your spirit. You are not hard to love. You are too deep to love quickly, too sacred to love casually, and too divine to love temporarily. The reason most people can't access your heart is because your heart was designed for covenant, not convenience. You weren't made to fit into everyone's plans. You were made for divine alignment. Let me affirm this truth with Isaiah 49:2. He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. You're not invisible. You're intentionally hidden, a weapon of light in the quiver of God. He's waiting for the right moment to launch you, not when you're loud, but when you're ready. Not when the crowd sees you, but when the calling needs you. So yes, the walk is lonely, but so was Moses' walk, so was Esther's fast, so was John the Baptist's wilderness, so was Jesus' garden. Chosen one, loneliness doesn't mean you've been forgotten. It means you've been set apart. Your life is not meant to impress. It's meant to impact. You're not here to be everywhere. You're here to be exactly where God needs you to be. So stop measuring your worth by how many people understand you. Most won't. And that's okay. You weren't called to relate. You were called to rebuild. And when your season of leadership begins, when the world finally sees what heaven has been shaping in secret, don't be surprised if the very people who once overlooked you try to follow you. Because people always return to what is real. And you, chosen one, are real in a world obsessed with performance. So hold your head high, walk your path, stay hidden until God says, go. Let the silence teach you, let the isolation refine you, let the loneliness prepare you, because your time is coming, and when it does, you will not be shaken. Beloved chosen one, if these words reached you like a divine whisper at just the right moment, if something stirred within your spirit, if tears fell, if healing began, know that this was never random. You were meant to hear this. This was heaven's way of saying, I see you. I've never stopped seeing you. If you felt seen, heard, or understood at a soul level, go ahead and type 777 in the comments right now. Let it be your sacred signal, a confirmation that divine clarity, favor, and supernatural alignment have stepped into your atmosphere. Your journey is shifting, your frequency is rising, and yes, you're not walking this road alone anymore. Don't forget to subscribe, because what we're building here is more than content. It's a sanctuary, a movement, a global soul tribe of chosen ones like you who are done with shallow noise and hungry for deep truth. This is where your spirit will be nourished. This is where your power will be remembered. If you'd like to support this message and help us continue creating space for the chosen, you can donate through Super Thanks just below this video. Whether you give or not, please know this from the depths of our hearts. We are truly, sincerely grateful for you. Your presence here is a gift. Your energy is sacred, and your healing matters more than any amount. As you leave this message, may divine favor wrap itself around you like a warm cloak. May the doors meant for you open effortlessly. May your discernment be sharp, your peace be steady, and your love return multiplied. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are a lighthouse, a living truth, a sacred mirror in a world full of masks. And when the right ones see you, they will stay. God bless you, beloved chosen one. Until next time, keep walking in truth. Keep choosing alignment. And never forget, heaven is closer than it seems.